Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up for the week ending November 2nd. I only finished one book this week, and I've started several others. With the new month, I've started a bunch of different things for different reading events and different groups that I'm participating in, and I'm feeling I'm feeling very distracted, as I think many of us are right now. But I'll talk about what I finished and I'll talk about what I have started. This week I finished Agatha Christie's Sleeping Murder. And this is described as Miss Marple's last case. I've been engaging in this little personal project where I am intending to read all of the Miss Marple novels. I love Agatha Christie. I love all of her novels, but I derive a particular level of comfort from the Miss Marple novels, and that seemed to be an appropriate thing for me to be reading this fall. So I finished Sleeping Murder this week. I wanted to read this week because it was Halloween, and this book was described as sort of a ghost story. Well, it's not really a ghost story. This is the story of a young woman named Gwenny or Gwenda who moves into a new house in a little village in England. When she's supposed to find a house and buy a house. She's newly married, and she's supposed to find a house and buy it and get it set up in anticipation of her husband's arrival. And she goes to this house, one of the houses that she's viewing and thinking of buying, and she has this feeling that she's coming home. Something about the house feels very, very familiar, even though she doesn't understand why it feels familiar, because she believes that she, came from New Zealand and doesn't know why a house in England would be giving her these feelings of coming home. She starts to feel weird presences in the house, and at some point early in the novel, she actually sees herself watching a man strangling a woman. Well, it turns out that Gwenny or Gwenda actually has lived in this house before, that she lived here when she was a very, very small child. But she had completely forgotten this. She had blocked out this time in her life. And she had been sent off to New Zealand to live with relatives after her mother's death. Well, with the help of Miss Marple, Gwenda begins to delve into, what these visions mean and why she has this sense about this house and what happened in this house, basically. And what we begin to find out is that, the ghosts in this story are really, her own personal ghosts. These are long repressed memories. And Miss Marple helps her to, find out what it is that happened many years ago and what it is that she witnessed. So I wouldn't say this is my favorite Miss Marple novel. I mean, I really do like them all, but this is not one of my top Miss Marple novels. But it's still a comfort read for me, and it was, although it wasn't exactly a Halloween story, it was pretty much what I needed to be reading this week. I also have started. I've read the first 2 acts of Anton Chekhov's play The Seagull, which is included in this collection of plays. This is something that I'm reading with a a group, a booktube group called Chekhovember, where we're reading 2 plays by Chekhov, and then we're going to read one long short story, almost a novella, and then 2 short stories. So this first week of November, our reading is The Seagull. This was one of Chekhov's plays. It's considered the first of his 4 major plays. It was written in 1895. As I said, I've read the first 2 acts of the play, and I will finish the play today, and then I hope to watch a production of the play as well this weekend. This is a play that takes place at a country estate one summer, where there is a sort of theater company that's putting on a kind of avant-garde play that was written by one of the main characters in the play. Something that has struck me as being really interesting about this play is that in the past year, I read Anne Patchett's newest novel called Tom Lake. And when people talk about that novel, they make connections to the work of Chekhov. And often they talk about the cherry orchard, because there is a cherry orchard in Tom Lake. And they talk about his play, 3 Sisters. There are 3 sisters in this family that's being featured in Tom Lake. And there's a lot of talk about Thornton Wilder's play, Our Town, because there's a production of that that's going on for a good part of, through a number of the chapters of that book. But in reading The Seagull, which is a play that I've never read before, this is a new to me Chekhov play, I realized that there are overtones of the seagull also in Anne Patchett's novel. So it's making me think, I love that book, Tom Lake, and it's making me think that I want to go back and look at it again now that I'm reading Chekhov intensely, because there's a theater company in Tom Lake that takes place at a place called Tom Lake, and that feels very much like what's happening in The Seagull. And I hadn't read anything about roots in The Seagull or connections to that play, so I'm going to go back and take another look at that. So I'm reading this with a delightful group of booktubers, and we have a Voxer group where we will be discussing the the play and the stories as well. I also have just started Claudia Pineiro's novel, All Yours. And I'm reading this with a delightful group of booktubers also in a Voxer group. We are going to be reading 4 novels of Claudia Pineiro over time. We're not trying to do this all in November, but during the first 2 weeks of November, we are reading All Yours. So far, this is the story of a married couple, Inez and Ernesto. And Inez believes that Ernesto is being unfaithful to her, and very early on, in the very first chapters, she discovers that, in fact, he is being unfaithful. She narrates a good deal of the novel, but not all of the novel. There are alternating chapters that also describe what's going on with their teenage daughter, and that's I don't know if it's every other chapter yet. I haven't gotten far enough to know if that's how it works. But in Inez's chapters, where she is narrating, we are experiencing the demise of her marriage through her eyes. She follows her husband one night when he says he's going to work. She knows he's not going to work, and she follows him and spies on him, and this is where she discovers who the girlfriend is, and then some terrible things begin to happen. So I'm not going to say any more than that. I haven't gotten much further than that yet, but I don't want to give anything away either. According to the cover of this book, this is a tale of infidelity and obsession, which lead to murder. So also, we learned in setting this group up and starting to make plans for this, we learned that this novel, All Yours, is a prequel to the most recent novel by Claudia Pineiro, Time of the Flies, which just came out this, I think it came out in September or the end of the summer. That has just come out in translation, and this is the prequel to that. Some of the same characters from this novel are in the what will be the fourth novel that we're going to read. So, really looking forward to these discussions with just a wonderful group of booktubers. I am also reading with I'm with the Band book club, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. And this is a National Book Award winner. I'm with the Band book club is a club that MJ at Reading This Life has started as part of her Read 24 in 2024 Banned Book Challenge. And MJ created this club on the Fable app for us to discuss a variety of books that have been recently banned. Recently, Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads and I have become co-moderators with MJ just to help facilitate the discussions of these various novels that we're reading. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian is the first-person narrative of 14-year-old Junior, a Native American teenaged boy living on a reservation. He was born with hydrocephalus and a number of really serious physical differences. His head is larger than it's supposed to be. He also describes his feet as being abnormally large. He has a stutter. He has a lisp. He has serious vision problems. And all of these differences about him make him the target of bullies on the reservation. And he uses art as a way of escaping from the hardships in his life. He's a cartoonist. And so the book is filled with his cartoons. So while it's not a graphic novel, it is actually, it's a first-person narrative. He includes his cartoons all through the book. Junior is convinced early in the novel that the only way to escape this culture of poverty and and alcoholism and defeat is to get off the reservation. Now, Junior has a best friend on the reservation, and that's his friend Rowdy, who is a big, tough kid, and he's an angry kid, and he flies off the handle easily, and he comes to Junior's defense all the time. You know, he's always defending him against these bullies, and he really provides a lot of protection. And when Junior begins to consider leaving, you know, to go to school off the reservation, this is a real blow to his really one friend, Rowdy. So that's as far as I've gotten so far. But this is a really, really quick read. This is a YA novel, and it's one of the most frequently banned books currently in the states where book banning seems to happen. Okay. This is what I mean about being fragmented. I've started a bunch of things, but the only thing I finished was Agatha Christie. I also just started Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, The Message, which is really a memoir. This starts out as a book about writing, about the importance of putting our experience into words, the importance of telling our stories, but it is about to become a book about his travels. His travels to Senegal, to South Carolina, where he finds his books are being banned, and to Palestine. So as we get into his travels to these three places, he talks about the urgent need to untangle ourselves from some of the stories that have been told, and to kind of write our own stories. He says that will shape our world and our souls. So that's what I'm reading, what I have read so far this week. I also did a Poetry Thursday episode for Halloween, and it was just a short video of spooky poems. I read a couple of poems by Emily Dickinson, by Rainer Maria Rilke, and by H.P. Lovecraft, just to keep in the spirit of spooky season. And also this week I put out episode 4 of my new series on the books I loved to teach. And in this episode, I talked about my longtime love of J.D. Salinger's novel, The Catcher in the Rye, a novel that I also taught for about 30 years of my career. And a lot of people have asked me what took me so long to do that particular video, because it's no secret that I love that book. I've talked about that book in a number of different videos. It has satisfied a number of prompts in tags that I've done over the past few months, and it's everybody knows that I love that book. And several people said they were waiting for this, or what took you so long, and I've been thinking about that, because obviously everybody knew I was going to eventually do this, and it was just a matter of time. But I think my answer to that is that I put that video together, with obviously a lot of love and a lot of heart, because it's such an important book. It's an important book in my own life as well as in my teaching career. But I was fearful of putting that out there. And I think that when you treasure something as deeply as I treasure that novel. And it's a novel because I've reread it at so many different parts in my life. It's come to have different meanings for me over my lifetime. And where some people kind of don't want to read Salinger when they get to be a certain age because it's kind of a younger person's book. For me, it's a book that has just taken on new meaning at different stages of my life. And, later in my life, I think I've read it more from a clinical point of view because I am a working therapist as well as a retired teacher. And so, it's a novel about severe depression and, almost pathological mourning. So I've looked at it from a therapist's point of view as well. And I think that, whenever I put anything out there in a video, anything that is near and dear to my heart, I do so with a little bit of fear and trepidation because I want it to be I want it to be appreciated, and I and I don't want to be attacked. And I think that's just from my early experiences on BookTube when I talked about some other books that I taught and that I loved to teach, and the trolls came out and did a number on me. So nothing like that has happened at all. The conversation has been wonderful among everyone who has responded, including people who say, that book was not for me, or I'm one of the people that didn't like that book. We've had great dialogue going back and forth. And then there, of course, are a number of people for whom that book is very important. So it's been a delightful dialogue. But I think that's that's the long answer for what took me so long. I was just a little bit fearful of how it would be received, and then how that would affect me, because I feeling very, very vulnerable these days, and maybe more so than I normally do, and I can feel pretty vulnerable. So that's my explanation. So anyway, as always, thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.